students. The topic which we'll be covering today is the communication skills in healthcare. We'll be discussing the same in detail. So, in the previous classes, we have discussed rules of professional conduct, that how a professional is supposed to carry himself, to conduct himself, and the code of ethics, the morality and the legality, and the client interest and satisfaction. This we have already discussed. Next, in this lecture about communication skills in healthcare services, first we'll be talking about what is communication exactly, how many types of communications are there, and then styles of communications, various styles, and what is exactly a good patient-doctor relationship is all about. Now, what is communication? So, a communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. That depends upon which type of communications you are using. Is it a verbal one or the non-verbal? It is basically the process by which a doctor or a patient, or maybe a doctor or some family member or attendant, there is an exchange of information between them. Being a healthcare provider, being a physiotherapist, this communication skill should be kept at your top priority. It should be at the stellar. It should be at the top risk, because the quality of the exchange of information will lead to the appropriate diagnosis and hence the appropriate treatment and the possible outcomes. It is said to be a fundamental skill. If a person is a good listener and he knows how to communicate with his patients or students or whosoever he is dealing, then he possesses a good quality of being a good therapist. This is how a good therapist differs from the bad therapist. So communication goals are to change the behavior, to get action, to ensure understandings, that whatever exchange of information is being there, it should be delivered, it should be understood at both the ends, to persuade and to give and get information. So in communication, in health, the tools of communication mix are based on an interpersonal communication. Now, what is interpersonal communication? It is also known as interhuman communication. As the name itself suggests, it was the first human spiritual tool of socialization process, the process of socialization, that how you communicate with the society, the members of society. So it was defined by Floyd as being the communication that occurs between two people in the context of their relationship, and that as it evolves helps to negotiate and define the relationship. So it is, again, in a simple language we have discussed, it is the exchange of information which varies, which may change according to the status of the relationship. It may change, it may also evolve as depending upon the relationship between that who two people are exchanging information between each other, and then it also helps to negotiate and define the relationship. In his work, in the Floyd's work, in the book which was written by him, The Psychology of Communication, Theories and Methods, along with Jean-Claude Albrecht, he defined communication as the ensemble of process, the communication as a process through which it carries out exchange of information and of meanings between persons in given social situation. So it may change, the type of communication may change depending upon the context of situation, the topic of conversations. So beside the training of medical staff and the medical advancements in the field of diagnosis and treatment, the human component is very important. So you can imagine that the amount of emphasis which is required for the training of medical staff and the medical advancements like technology or biotechnology, it is the human component is also being emphasized lately. It further ensures the therapy success being provided by the patient-doctor good relationship. So there are basically broadly two types of communication are there: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. Now names itself, they are self-explanatory, but verbal communication means use of words and voice modulation. It is the sound, the quality, the pitch of the voice which you are using, the words, the selectivity of the words which convey to your listener that what you are trying to say, what are you implying on. So if you want to say, let's just say no, and that too very adamantly, very rigidly, so that the voice modulation, the tone, the pitch you have selected to convey the message will convey that how rigidly or how appropriately you want to say no to that particular patient. Now, non-verbal communication is exactly the opposite. It communicates through emotions and attitudes. It involves your body language, your gestures, your hand movements. It regulates verbal messages. By non-verbal communication, you regulate verbal communication. So non-verbal communication also, it is 55% of the communication is through your body language, your hand movements, your gestures. Now, non-verbal communications we've already discussed, it is the gestures. Or are you aware of how you look to the others? Like, imagine yourself at the receiving end. Then find out your habits and normal gesture, nervous gestures. If somebody is nervous when he's sitting in front of you, let's just say when you're in an interview, you may be engaging lot of hand movements, or maybe when you're standing at a distance from your interview, it implies that you're nervous. So your postures, what kind of postures are you attaining? Your body language, your movements. If you're standing tall, that implies confidence. Okay, if you're standing straight, if you're sitting straight, that also tells you that the person is confident enough. The facial expressions you're using, the smile, the eye communication, these are all means of non-verbal communications. So being a good doctor, the moment patient walks into your clinic, your OPD, or whichever clinical setup you are in, your diagnosis, your interpretation, your assessment part starts within that very minute when the patient walks in. So 90% of our personal communication calls for involvement. To show involvement, look at your audience. Audience here is your patient or your client. For 5 to 10 seconds before looking away, you have to observe that non-verbal and verbal communication patterns, that what he's trying to say. Next is types of communication. Now, verbal communication, we have already discussed. Words means use simple language. Avoid jargon. When you are trying to convey, when you are communicating with your patients, make sure that you use simple language, the language which is well understood by them. Okay, so avoid jargon means any complicated use of words or terminologies or slang, which is probably native to you but not to your patient. Make sure that you're grammatically correct. Be clear and precise. Like I said, if you want to say, if you are, let's just assume that you're giving a home care regime to the patient or exercise chart to the patient. So the emphasis you want to place on the exercise, let's just say you want to emphasize the hamstring curls to a patient. So by your verbal and non-verbal cues, you can tell the patient that how important it is. Then the voice modulation, diction, tone, pitch, volume, rate, the frequency at which you are talking, the number of words in a minute, that determines the expressive, the effectiveness of communication. Now with communication comes your rights, different rights and responsibilities as well. Now what are your rights? Let's just compare each one of them. You have the right to be treated as a patient. You have a right to be treated with respect. Okay, now you have the responsibility. Being a doctor, we have a responsibility to treat them, your patients, with respect. The patient has a right to have and express your own opinions. As a patient, you have a right to express your opinion, that what you feel is right. If you're getting pain while the therapy, it is important for you to make sure that you express the same to your therapist so that he can revise his plan maybe. And being a doctor, you have the responsibility to listen to the opinion of others as well. You have the right to ask for what you need in order to be effective. And similarly, you have the responsibility to acknowledge and address the need of others. So, others' needs are also need to be given equal importance. You have the right to set you have the right to set reasonable limits. You should be, it is your right to set reasonable limits. Similarly, as a responsibility, you have the responsibility to respect the limits and boundaries of others. Here, by limits, we are trying to say the privacy part. You need to ensure that the patient's right of privacy is maintained. Now, the importance of communication skills in medical practice. Developing strong communication skill is integral to becoming an effective healthcare provider. We've already discussed that it is a fundamental clinical skill one need to possess to be a good doctor. You should be an active listener. You should listen to your patients politely, listen to them and talk to them politely. In recent years, good doctor-patient communication has been linked to improved patient satisfaction. If you're a good listener, obviously you'll be able to satisfy your patients better. This has been proven by research as well. So better patient care is also there, and a decrease in malpractice lawsuits. So all the misconceptions or the malpractices which are there, because this will ensure that no miscommunication will be there. So you can see in the core competencies as a health professional, being a physiotherapist, we have certain core competencies of the patient care. It involves your attitudes. You can see in that pyramid it is at the top. Professionalism, interpersonal and communication skills are kept at the top. So they are the ones which has been proven by research also that further guides, that ensures the patient satisfaction, their level of involvement in your regime, or the better patient care for sure. Other than that, it is your skills, the practice based on learning, system based practice, which are also important. But what we are trying to say here is that your attitude, your professionalism, communication skills, they should be your top priority. So now what doctors need? What qualities does a good doctor need to possess so that he can be called as a good doctor? So first is knowledge, your skill. Okay. The next is ability to elicit information from patients. If you're a good listener, your patient will have trust on you. He will consider you that you're considered enough. You're emphasizing on his concerns. So that ability ensures that you will be able to elicit more information from your patient. Interpersonal skills to respond to patients' feelings and concerns, to diagnose and treat disease. Okay, to establish and maintain a therapeutic relationship. The good interpersonal communication or communication skills ensures that you maintain a good therapeutic relationship. To offer information and educate. In order to deliver effective healthcare, doctors are expected to communicate orally or in writing with the range of professional, manager, patients and attendants and families. Okay, so be it a oral communication, like it can be an oral verbal communication or non-verbal communication, make sure that a good doctor or healthcare provider, he is expected to be polite, he needs to listen. So remember that every patient could be you. That is the feeling of empathy, that whosoever you are dealing or is sitting in front of you could be your mother, he could be your brother or the sister. That is, you need to feel their pain. Okay, how would he or she feel if that lady which is sitting in front of you, the old lady, he could also be your mother, that how would she feel if she's waiting for too long for a doctor to come? So that is the feeling of empathy one needs to possess. So what is good patient-doctor relationship? When you are approaching a patient, first introduce yourself. Okay, that I am doctor with your name and so that this is your area of expertise. Explain your role. That now shake hands, but do not force physical contact. There are cultural differences also. Like we know that being Indians in the rural setup, the female, they may not like physical contact. You can greet them by non-verbal communication as well. Okay, and also physical contact if the patient is comfortable enough. Then obtaining consent, the informed consent is also very, very important beforehand. Call the adult patient by Mr. and Mrs. You cannot call them uncle, auntie or whatsoever. Act like a professional. Call them by their names, Mr. So and so and Mrs. Okay, if you're not sure that the lady in front of you is married or not, make sure that you avoid giving Mrs. as a prefix. Okay, maintain privacy of the patient. If you are to investigate or assess a body part which patient might not be comfortable in exposing, make sure that the curtains are properly done there. Keep doors and curtains closed. Acknowledge and greet others in the room as well, not only to the patient. If there's an attendant which is coming along with the patient to your room, make sure that you greet them also, acknowledge their presence. You can involve them also in your communication. At all times, demonstrating empathy, respect, interest, and attending patient physical comfort. This will give information to the patient that you are considerate of his pain. Good communication gives the chance to the patient to tell what is wrong with them in their own words. If patient is comfortable with you, he'll be telling you his chief complaints in his own words, which is the best thing. They will intend to open up. If you develop that good communication or that bond with the patient, they will intend to open up. They'll give you the minor details, the minute details of the day as well, which are bothering them. So they will have the impression that you are considerate, and then they can trust you. So this is what a good patient-doctor relationship asks for. So far we have discussed that the communication is a fundamental skill a medical practitioner need to possess. It should be critical to every aspect of diagnosis, treatment, and possible outcome. There are two types of communication, verbal and non-verbal. There are three styles of communication, passive, assertive, aggressive, which you can correlate with your personality trait as well. Then we have discussed the rights and responsibilities of patients. So here are few references which you can check out where I've taken the content from. Thank you.